What's up guys, this is Felipe from the Noob Trader. So on this video, I'm going to be discussing the price action that we've seen over the last few days with gold. Obviously, we got a really strong rebound and I'm just going to give my thoughts on it. Okay, so as I said in the previous gold video, I mean, even when we started seeing this big drops in price here, etc. here, and I've been saying this for the longest of time, I still believe that any price for gold under 1800 and especially around 1750 or this price range and below is a good buying opportunity for gold. And the reasons that I previously gave were um, because fundamentally, right, although in the short term, there are some things which may be fundamentally against gold, but there's also a lot of fundamentally a lot of things right now that are going for gold. So when we get certain data releases from a fundamental standpoint, right, like jobs data or something like that, we may actually see some bounces which are going to be bullish for gold. Um, and at the same time, what I also said was that also from a much more longer term standpoint, I just think that gold is probably going to be the asset that you need to be in, especially if we see a situation where certain things like the stock market start seeing some downside price action. Okay. And ultimately, what we saw on Thursday was really not looking very good, right, from the technical standpoint on the charts. But what we saw on Thursday was sure enough, at 7:30 p.m. my time, so that's GMT plus 7. I forgot what time it is in the States. I think it's like 8:30 in the morning. We had the initial jobless claims data come out, which, another jobs report, the number of jobs being reported, or people claiming that they're jobless, has increased from basically 351,000 from the previous report to 362,000, which was significantly above the forecast. Okay. So it's not necessarily that this jobs report was the full cause of this move from in the day that one point it price hit around 1721 all the way and closed at around 1755. It wasn't the sole catalyst, okay? But it was a combination, of course, of things. If you start looking at the hourly time frames, let's see. If you start looking at the hourly time frames, you can really see here, right, at this point in time here, that we had that really strong push up, right? And this was certainly a combination of the news, people, you know, uh, buying up gold as a result of the bad jobs report, right? So positive for gold. And that really led, that little bit of price movement really led to people starting to get liquidated, right? Remember that liquidations can happen both ways, both on the short end and on the long end, right? So this is what happened here. And then we got this really strong move upwards. Okay, but for sure the catalyst was the report itself. At the same time, when you started looking at the DXY, right? Let's go back to the day chart. We were really going pretty strong on the DXY chart, and surely the dollar needed to pull back to at least create some support somewhere. Like things just can't keep on going up forever, right? So we hit a point where we were reaching very close previous range or relative highs around here at around 94.5. And sure enough, we also started seeing a pullback. So it's kind of like this culmination of all these different things, which led to gold bouncing like this, right? We also were at a very strong support range of 1720, which was the last kind of key support level back in sort of the 10th, the 11th of August. And sure enough, it was like a culmination of things, and we got this very strong bounce. And again, the price action that we saw over the last 2 days really reinforced to me the idea or the notion that, yes, in the short term, who knows what's going to necessarily happen, whether we're going to see further moves to the downside with gold as a result of all the tapering talk, the super high inflation and whether the Fed's going to do anything about it. But even if there is downside movement, I still think that fundamentally there's still certainly room for upside movement too, or pushes up, okay? The economy is in a very precarious position at the moment. have badge stops data. COVID is still a big issue. Inflation is still a big issue. And also at the same time, you have the stock market, which again, as I've reiterated before, is just not looking particularly good right now. For the first time in quite some time, it really looks like the S&P 500, for example, is starting to build a trend of lower highs and lower lows. Okay, first time in quite some time, and this is all culminating to like a very interesting period at the moment for markets, right? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the next coming months or so, as you know, there continues to be more talk about interest rate raising. Inflation still becomes an even hotter topic than it already is. And I just think that in terms of a risk to reward standpoint, gold at these levels of 1750, 1740, 1730 is certainly a good buy opportunity from a risk to reward standpoint. That hasn't changed, okay? Next week, we will also be having, let's see what kind of data releases we're going to be having next week. Next week we have PMI data. We have the next big jobs report, that's right. We have the ADP, which comes out on Wednesday, and then that normally follows the NFP, which comes out on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. That's correct, with the unemployment rate. So again, another massive jobs report, okay? So just think, even if we see downwards price action in gold over the first few days of the week next week, don't forget, fundamentally, you cannot ignore fundamentals when looking at gold price or analyzing gold price, because right now the jobs reports have not been good. We can probably expect the next job report also not to be so great. Okay, last NFP data was really below the forecast. I'm assuming we're going to see something potentially similar. Okay, so if we are, we should probably be seeing further upside in the price of gold. Okay, or at least a bounce if we had seen previous downside over the first few days of the week. So don't forget that this really shows you ultimately the last few days really shows you how important understanding fundamentals is as well when trading or investing in gold. Okay. Anyways, those are my thoughts for the bounce that we've seen over the last couple of days. If you have any questions, please consider leaving a comment, consider giving a like, and I'll see you on the next video.